People pleasing is one of the most dangerous and detrimental things that you can do for your health. Now, when most of us think of people pleasing, we think on the surface. We think, oh, somebody who is pleasing others in order for them to be liked, right? And it kind of stops there. However, that does it a disservice, and it actually is more hindering and detrimental to us than anything else. It's like belittling trauma, right? And its effects on the human body. When you are a people pleaser, that is rooted in the belief that I am not worthy of love until fill in that blank. And usually that fill in the blank, that blank space of I am not worthy is I'm not worthy until I am of use to other people. I'm not worthy until I do for other people. I'm not worthy until I neglect and abandon myself, my own needs, my emotions in order for others to feel comfortable in my presence. Now, maybe you're religious and you're born in a fundamental religious background or household like I was, and you started adopting this belief that in order for you to be worthy, you had to sacrifice yourself at the altar of everybody else's needs. Maybe you were taught of a God who says you are not enough until you sacrifice yourself, you quote unquote take up your cross, you forget yourself, and you go out there and do for others. Now, I'm not somebody who's against service. As a matter of fact, you obviously see this. I put out a video every single day in order to reach people. I am in my purpose. I am walking the steps of my calling. However, I have now learned to separate myself or my sense of self, my sense of self-worth from what I do. Where most of us believe that we are what we do for other people. We are the service, right? You volunteer and say, I feel good because I'm doing something for others. When in reality, the greatest thing that you could ever do is be the highest version of yourself. But instead of that, you've been taught in order to help poor people get as poor as possible, right? In order to help sick people, you should get sick. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? In order for you to help somebody who is in poverty, become poor. In order for you to help somebody who is sick, become sick. In order for you to help somebody who's depressed, become depressed. Does that make sense? Now you may think to yourself, well, that's empathy. We got to be compassionate. Compassion is incomplete when you are not included in it. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I believe it's Jack Cornfield. Compassion is incomplete when you're not included in it. And so why I say that people pleasing is one of the most detrimental things to your health, I mean physically and literally. I'm not saying that hyperbolically. I'm saying that there are doctors who are now coming out and admitting, oh, well, a majority of these diseases are caused not only by stress, by what's under that stress, which is the way in which we're living, the way in which we're thinking, the way in which we're emoting. And all of that is rooted in who we believe we are. So if I believe that I am not worthy until I do for others, until I sacrifice for others, etc., I'm living from that state of hypervigilance, of anxiety. I'm living from that state of unworthiness, of undeservedness. And so the activities that I do are going to be self-neglecting activities. The toxicity continues to build in my body, right? Those fight or flight hormones, those cortisol levels, those adrenaline levels, etc. Because I'm always in this hypervigilant state. I am never truly at peace, never truly at rest with myself. And so, of course, you're going to end up in a state of dis-ease. Now, spirituality has been saying this forever, but now the modern medicine is catching up a little bit, right? And some still don't want to admit it because there's other interests, of course, other hands in that pie per se. But the ones who are willing to tell the truth, like the Dr. Gabor Mate's of the world, and the Dr. Joe Dispenzas of the world, etc. These individuals are coming out letting us know, like, hey, when you have undealt with traumas, when you have this programming and conditioning that is not servicing you or not serving you and your highest good, you're going to end up in a state of dis-ease. Now, how that shows up is different for everybody, right? And again, I'm not a doctor. I am not I'm not an individual who went through the typical or traditional medical system or even psychiatric system or even psychological system. I realized that I had to heal. And I had to learn exactly how I was going to heal. And I had to implement those things for years on end. And I had to fall and I had to get back up, fall, get back up. I had to go through the process. And now I have the opportunity of helping others go through that process themselves and grow through that process. So I didn't take a traditional path, and I believe that was the most helpful thing for me. But I do have to let it be known, because I'm not here to diagnose or prescribe anything to you. The only thing I'm going to prescribe to you today is self-awareness and inner work, which is that forgiveness of self and others, that acceptance of self, right? that acceptance of what happened, that looking at the past not as a lens of look what happened to me, but look at the things that have affected my now reality. Look at the beliefs that I'm still holding on to. Look at the destructive nature of the patterns of my, of my thinking right now. And these all came from somewhere, as opposed to denying and neglecting those aspects. Coming into integration with those quote unquote shadow aspects of yourself, right? Shout out to Teal Swan, who is masterful when it comes to this. There comes a point in time when we have to come to a realization that our health is truly in our own hands, completely, regardless of what they tell you. They say less than 5% of diseases are being credited towards genetics in this day and age. Less than 5%. And they're saying even that 5% is questionable. And that's because we're still in 2023. In 2053, it's going to be a very different story. When the truth is all out there, it's going to be a very different story for, a majority of us who are still living on this planet. We're finally going to come to terms with the mind-body connection is absolutely real. And when you're people-pleasing, it is not just a surface-level behavior. This is an internal reaction or response mechanism to us believing we are not worthy, we are not deserving of love until we do something for others. And that never satisfies. That can never be enough. It's like, taking a drug to fix that loneliness within you. You're going to need more and more, and you're always going to be seeking that high in order for you to feel just a glimpse or a sense of comfort in that moment. And so I ask you, is that a life that you want to live? Is that something that you want to continue to perpetuate for yourself? Or are you ready to take the steps out of that space? So if you are that individual who's ready to take steps out of that space, I'm building out a coaching program. This is going to be the only program that I'm running. I will probably do one course that people can buy, like a done by yourself type of course where you can go through that transformation. But my coaching product, my coaching service is going to be the place where we really dig deep and you get that access to me and you get the access to my coaches, etc., where we truly get the transformation and build those habits of the new version of you, breaking the habit of being yourself, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say. So if you're not only interested, but you're committed to this change, then make sure to access the link to the webinar that's going to be on Wednesday the 14th, I believe. I think it's Wednesday the 14th, with this June Wednesday 14, 2023. So if you're watching this anytime in the future, it's already released probably, right? Anytime after that, it's already been released. Make sure to watch that full webinar, go through it completely. And if you are somebody that it is calling to, make sure to follow the steps that follow and to see if you are ready for this program. I appreciate you guys. I love you. Peace.